Hi, welcome. Thank you for joining me today. I wanted to jump on here to talk to you about why it is that even a good diet might not be working for you. And what I mean by this is, I talk about dieting a lot, and I talk about how diets don't work, how they don't set you up for the long term, how they can cause you more problems than they solve. And when I use the word diet, many of you might be thinking about things like more extreme diets, like the Fast 800 diet, for example, or maybe some of the more well-known diets like Weight Watchers and Slimming World. But that's not the only ones that I'm talking about. No, really, I'm talking about any approach that focuses on restriction, anything that focuses on reducing the amount of food you're eating or the amount of calories you're taking in, or points or sins or whatever it might be, as the main approach, the main focus of that diet, if you like. And there's lots of different ones out there. There's things like going keto, going low carb, even though the focus of those is more on reducing the carbohydrates. Overall, the point of it is to get you to eat less food. It's just a different way of getting you to eat less food overall. And then there's things like meal replacements, and some of those are better than others. Whatever it is, whatever the approach you're taking is, whether it calls itself a diet or not, if it's focusing on reducing your food intake in one way or another, or getting you to burn more calories in one way or another, then in my books, that's a diet. And there are better ones and there are worse ones. But I wanted to talk about why even some of the better ones might not be working for you. And I would consider some of the better ones to be things like, going lower carb, potentially keto in some circumstances, but it's not generally something that I tend to recommend with the women that I work with. And part of the reason for that is because taking your carbs too low, which is in keto, you take them very low, that can have an impact on various different hormones in your body. It can reduce the function of your thyroid, slowing that down. It can interfere with your stress hormones and put your body into a stress response, because we do need a little bit of carb to function properly. It can interfere with your sleep and lots of other things that are all not helpful when we're trying to lose weight, particularly for women over the age of 40, because keeping those hormones nice and balanced is really key after that point, and up to that point as well, but more so afterwards if you want to see steady results. So the reason why even some of these good diets might not work, and these good diets might seem quite balanced in that they've got more nutrients and a wide variety of foods, and not be taking your calories too low. But the reason why they might not work for you is because the problem isn't that you're overeating. The problem isn't that you're greedy, or that you're overindulging, or that you're just not very good at tracking how much food you're eating or counting the points or the sins. In many cases for the women that we work with, it isn't a problem of overconsumption. It's a problem of their bodies not burning fat efficiently, and their bodies not being able to use fat as fuel in some cases. Your body has, or your cells have a choice, and they can use fat, they can use carbs, they can use protein, they can even use alcohol as fuel. And what we want is for your body to be using fat, of course, but many women that we work with are not fat adapted, and their bodies are using carbs or proteins as their main source of fuel. Or if they drink alcohol regularly, then they're using alcohol as a source of fuel as well. And we know this because when we run the tests that we do in our program, we look at their mitochondria, and the mitochondria are the little powerhouses in every cell in your body. And they're kind of like the batteries of your cell, and it's where they take the fuel from your food or from your stores in your body and convert it into energy. So it's where the calorie burning happens. And we can assess that by looking at some of the waste products that are produced as a result of that process. And by looking at the waste products produced and that are eliminated in your urine, we can see, are you burning fat? Are you burning carbs? Or are you likely burning protein? And by understanding that, we can see what it is that needs to be done. Because if you're not burning fat for fuel, then there can be a few different reasons for that. And it can be linked in with having some insulin resistance, which is what we think about when someone's diabetic. And that's something that can occur long before you're diabetic. So even if your blood test results have shown that your blood sugars are normal, it doesn't mean that you don't have some insulin resistance going on. So that's something that can interfere with your ability to get fat adapted. Also, for pretty much all the women that we work with, many of them have been on a higher carb diet, because when you go on a low fat diet, it is inevitably high carb. It has to be, because, you can't cut out everything. So many of the women that we work with have been on a higher carb diet for a significant proportion of their lives. And that's okay when you're younger. I'm saying the word okay loosely. It's not ideal, but your body can cope with it when you're younger, because you don't have the problems with insulin resistance in most cases, and your hormones are more balanced, and your body is just better able to manage that sugar load that comes from those carbs. But after the age of 35, 40, your body can't deal with that amount of carb coming in. And that can be why you start to put the weight on. One of the reasons, there's lots of reasons why. But that can leave you to be not fat adapted, where your body really struggles to use fat for fuel when you do change up your diet. And often what can happen when someone changes things up and they reduce the amount of carbohydrates they're eating, they can get quite a significant weight loss in the first few weeks. And very often that's actually water weight that you're losing, because carbs, in order for us to store sugars, which come from carbs, in our muscles and our tissues, we have to store it with water. So when we start burning through our stores of sugar, we start losing a lot of water. So a lot of people feel that low carb diets work really well for them, but actually it could just be that you're losing loads of water, and that can take a few weeks for those water levels to dwindle down. And so you can feel like it's working for a few weeks and then it stops. And part of the reason for that is because you're not fat adapted. So you're not actually losing fat. You're not continuing that weight loss because you've lost all the sugar stores and the water that you can, and then you've plateaued. So that's obviously not what we want for your long-term success. And that's why we look at the mitochondria and see whether you are burning fat or not. And if you're not, then with the stuff that we look at, we can see what we need to do to get you burning fat and get you properly fat adapted. So that's one of the reasons why even the good diets might not be working for you. But also there's things like your thyroid. If your thyroid is underactive or suboptimal, which, on your normal blood test that your doctor runs, it might all come back as normal, but actually it may well be in the very lower end of the ranges, which means that it's not functioning optimally. And if that's the case, then your thyroid controls the speed of your metabolism. So we were just talking about how your body burns fat, and the thyroid controls how quickly that process works. So that's another problem that we can have, where you might not be fat adapted, and you may also have a sluggish thyroid, meaning a sluggish metabolism. So, and you know, it's not as clear cut as well as just being in the lower end of the ranges on the thyroid, because the tests that you have done at the doctors can be very basic. In fact, they're always very basic. And so we do a more detailed one because there are just markers that don't get tested and can be suboptimal when the normal ones, the ones that are normally tested, are looking okay and normal. So that's another reason why you might not be seeing progress. And then there are a whole range of other things that might be causing issues, like your sex hormones being imbalanced. You know, if your sex hormones are imbalanced, that can have a knock-on effect on your thyroid and on the way that you're burning fats and carbs. And also it may be to do with stress hormones as well. And stress hormones impacts everything that we've mentioned so far. It can disrupt your sex hormones, it can slow down your thyroid, it can interfere with your fat burning, it can raise inflammation in your body, which can make you retain water. So there's loads of different angles for us to think about. And diets do not touch on any of these things. All they focus on is reducing the amount of food you're taking in. And as I say, the differences between the diets are just creative ways of doing that. But actually, what we need to see success for more than just a couple of weeks is to dig down into what's causing this kind of what we would call weight loss resistance, where your body isn't releasing the fat stores. Is it because your thyroid's sluggish? Is it because you're not fat adapted? Is it because your stress hormones are high? Because your sex hormones are imbalanced? Because your liver is detoxing properly? Because your gut bacteria is imbalanced? Is it because you're inflamed? Why are you inflamed? Is it because you've got intolerances or deficiencies? Or is your immune system compromised? So there's loads of things to think about that a diet just does not touch on. So that is why we focus on getting deeper into the problem. And that is why you may have found that a diet doesn't work for you. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope this is kind of open your eyes a little bit to why what you're doing right now, what you may have started this month, whether it be in January, may not be working for you at the moment. And please know that we're here to help if you need any support with digging into that deeper and getting the right pathway for you to get to your goals. I hope that you found this helpful, and I'll see you soon. Bye.